Got a little chop to it. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. This episode, we are going to be continuing on our version 2 of our Widebody car, bringing it back from the dead. And last episode, if you guys didn't check it out, click the link in the description below. Get caught up because we did a full airlift performance shock install. So we did the Builder Series shocks front and rear on the DeLorean. We spec'd them out for the car. We also modified the lower control arms. As you can see, we got our Builder Series shocks in the front and we have them in the rear. We got just a couple DeLoreans in the shop today. I got to make some room because there's way too many gull wing doors in here. We got our rear ones in. So what we're going to be doing this episode is we're going to be finishing up the air ride install. We have to plumb all of our lines. We have to get all of our air lines ran to our Builder Series shocks. So I'm going to redo all that. We have to run everything up to our manifold. Our controller and all the wiring is done, so my buddy Shawn's going to be coming over later to help us out with getting this thing finalized and set up. We also moved the actual air compressor underneath the car, so it's down in the open air, so when you're driving the car, these fins and everything like that, keep it nice and cool. We also are going to be revamping a couple things with the wiring inside of the frunk, and we're also going to be reinstalling the hood. We're going to be putting the taillights back on. As you can see, we blacked them out. So I'm pretty pumped about this. Last time we took this car out, it had just clear. It didn't have any black anywhere. So this is more along the lines of like the original DeLorean, where it's all blacked out and you have, you know, this whole grill section is actually the lenses. So these guys are all red, obviously, when you're driving the car, and they sequence and stuff like that. So we'll get all this wired in today on this episode. And also, if you guys remember last episode, we talked to Tyler from Fortune Auto Design, talked about the Widebody kit, talked about the new Widebody kit that we're doing on the car and the revamp that we're doing. So hopefully, if we have enough time, we're going to be installing that new Widebody kit on this car on this episode. Because at the end of this episode, we have a really big announcement that we're going to be sharing with you guys. So stick around to the end of the episode. So to get us started, let's start plumbing all of our lines and talking about what we're going to be doing to get this air ride system all situated and set up before we start putting the thing back together. All right, guys, we got the car back on the ground. As you can see, Shawn Hughes from Automotive Power Solutions. I'll leave his link in the description below. He has helped me out with a ton of projects doing some wiring and also airlift because I don't do a lot of air ride. He's the man when it comes to air ride suspension and also electronics, and he's fixing my rat's nest right now down in that well. So what is it that some people have to realize when they're doing air ride for the first time? I mean, the airlift systems aren't totally difficult to deal with, I've heard, but I don't know anything about wiring.
No, this is actually very simple. You just have to make sure you have good grounds and a little bit more solid stuff, not a whole bunch of stuff moving around.
Yeah. So as far as like other air ride systems, how do you compare airlift to like other systems out there?
I've really only dealt with AccuAir, the Indo system, and then of course Airlift Performance. I love both of them. I don't think I really have a favorite one over the other. They both work flawlessly as long as the installer does a good job. It'll do you a good job.
Yeah, in case you guys are wondering, Shawn's actually the guy that got the DeLorean running the first time. So the Haltech IC7 and display that we have in the car and the Nexus R5 had some gremlins in the past. And a lot of people actually messed around with this car trying to get it running. Shawn's the guy that actually helped me out and get this thing running. So he's the man for the job when it comes to the air ride. Now it worked before, the airlift system worked fine. It was just rushed back in 2021 to try to get everything where we needed to be. But now that we have our Builder Series shocks installed, our tank is reinstalled, and also our air management manifold is reinstalled at a different position. Now we're going to have to rerun our lines. So the idea is we're going to be running some aluminum hard lines straight down from this manifold and through the carpet. So all you're going to see is these 5, stainless steel looking lines to be able to match the brushed aluminum on the flow tank as well as the brushed stainless steel on the exterior of the car. So it's all going to really tie in nicely. As you can see, Shawn is unrat's nesting a rat's nest there for me. So we're going to tidy all this up first, and then we're going to start routing all of our lines and figure out how we can do to get this thing to start jumping around. Right, Shawn?
Sure. not.
How's it gonna work?
It's not.
How's the air ride gonna work? Shawn, don't be shy.
No.
Looks like you're doing
I hate
things.
this already.
Looks like you're doing things.
I'm gonna leave. I'm never coming back, Tim. I'm never coming back.
Oh gosh. Oh, here we go. Oh, nice.
Oh, I found it on the floor.
I like that fitting.
Yeah, that's what I was showing you.
Oh, and then you have a male to male. Oh, female to female. Look at that.
Yeah.
All right, so
It's gonna be like that.
that goes in there.
Yeah.
That goes down there.
Hey.
Where'd you get this? They had this at Havoc?
Havoc Speed.
All right, so we have, what is this stuff called?
Nylon airline.
All right, so we have the nylon airline that's going to be going into our steel braided line. Now, the steel braided line from the Builder Series shocks, it's almost like a brake line at that point, right? So we just come up into the wheel well of the car,
Right.
so that there's no way that this is ever going to break or be frayed or anything like that. So it's not ideal to run the nylon to the actual Builder Series shock.
Right.
Is that correct?
I mean, I would ideally like to, but especially because I can't get this thing to thread back in.
Yeah, but this is so much fancier looking.
It is fancier looking, I'll give you that.
There you go. You almost got it.
No, I don't. That's what I don't understand.
Oh, it's on like an angle. That's why.
See? You can do it and film it.
Yeah. Let me see. No. Here, hold that.
Okay.
I know that goes there because I took it out. Actually, you know what?
I tried that already.
Did you?
Yes.
This is going to go almost to the manifold, so you're only going to need like a little scab of the black stuff.
That's the theory.
That's the idea. That just threads on there, sort of. And then we got that guy to thread on there. So we'll just fasten this somewhere inside of the wheel well, and then we'll do that in all four corners. The fronts look like we're going to be able to take a lot of length out of the black stuff.
See.
And then we just have to rewire the compressor back in because I cut this to get it out. And then you have your braided line here.
Right.
That's going to go to the passenger side of the tank to fill it. And then out of the driver's side of the tank, we're going to do a hard line into the air management manifold.
That's
Works?
it.
Makes sense. Okay.
We'll be right back. All right, guys, we just got back from Orlando. We picked up the body kit from Tyler from Fortune Auto Design, and we are about to unpack it. It was about a 2-hour drive from me to Orlando. Not too bad, but we got to get it in the shop. I got to move this car out of here, and the shop is a disaster, so I'm going to go ahead and clean it up real quick, get everything cleared out because we have a lot of work to do on this body kit. It was 3D printed, as we said previous episode when we talked about how we're approaching the body kit this time around as opposed to last time we did this, where we pulled molds and did all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty exciting. I've never really messed around with a 3D printed body kit before. So the process was with he used a higher grade plastic, so it'll be able to handle the abuse of what you would need for car parts. But he also backed everything with fiberglass. So I'm going to go to unload it now, bring it in the shop, and we'll talk more about what we have and what we're about to do to it. So we got the new body kit in gray and the old body kit in black. And the most noticeable difference is in the flares, so that's why I brought the flares down. And we don't have side skirts yet because the side skirts are in the mail. They were being printed over the weekend, and they should be here probably tomorrow or the day after. And they're a little different, so I'll compare those two as I get them. So as you can see, the original was like super rounded. You can see like this really rounded edge. And now the new version is sharp. And the reason we wanted to do that is because of the original flares on the DeLorean have this sharp edge. It's not round. Everything is sharp on the car. You know, all the edges are sharp, very, very sharp lines. These lines are very aggressive. So we wanted to accentuate that on the version 2. And also, version 1 was just a cut off. This one actually returns into the factory flare. So we have that front and rear. So it's going to be a really nice element to be able to clean it out. The front lip on the front bumper has been extended, which is pretty cool. And then a nice feature on this bumper compared to the old one is it's got an underlip. The old one did not have this. It was just a straight edge. So there was not a lot of strength in the front bumper, and it kind of
was like really flimsy, so it just touched anything, it cracked and everything like that. So these are 3D printed parts, guys, and then the backs are backed up with fiberglass. These are complete fiberglass, these parts. These are 3D printed. So this is like a PLA, which isn't the greatest for heat. That's why it's a show car. But this is going to give us a basis to actually pull parts in the future if we go to production with these cars, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 DeLoreans. Well, actually that one's a Camaro, but we got 4 DeLoreans here. Potential for growth. So we're going to go ahead and get these on the fender carts. We're going to start doing body work, and that brings us to our next items. So we have a whole slew of goodies from our local glass shop. We got Featherlight filler, acetone, mixing sticks, we got resin, we got hardener, we got filler primer, sandpaper, we got hardener for the Bondo, some nice gloves. We also have some fill cups, mixing cups, some tape because you never use any tape, sanding blocks, and we got some disposable paint brushes for the fiberglass work. The reason why I got all this fiberglass is, as you can see on the inside, we have a reverse flange where the hardware is hidden. And on the 3D printed parts, we do not. So what we'll do, when the time comes, I'll walk you guys through how we're going to actually reverse flange it. We're most likely going to do what we did last time. I'm going to use the car as a mold. We'll tape all the stainless steel up. We'll tape the fender flare on exactly where it needs to be. And then you glass all on the inside here, let it cure, and then the tape will allow it to release from the stainless steel, not sticking to the car. Then you just do some body work, a little bit of Bondo here and there, and it's good to go. So we're going to start, I think, on the front bumper first. We're going to get that all nice and blocked out, primed, looking good. And then we're going to go ahead and put the factory front bumper on. And then we use these original mounting holes we're going to use again, and go ahead and try to fit that underlip on the front of the car today so that we can get the front fenders fitted. And then once the side skirts come in, we can get the rear fenders fitted. And we are so close to getting done. Alright, so we got our front bumper pretty much where we want it as far as body work goes. As you can see, we got this thing nice and straight. There was just a little bit of skim work we had to do on the bottom lip here, on the face, on the sides, and we did a little trimming on the top to get it all nice and flat. So the next step we have to do is get our factory front bumper back on the car so then we can mount the underlip under here. Now, it's going to be a little tricky because we have just this thin flange that we have to mount to. And we have previous holes already drilled from the old body kit. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to put this bumper onto the car. I'm going to put a piece of plywood on our fender cart, on our actual fender cart. Put the bumper on the piece of plywood so it's flat and it's floating in space. And then we'll go ahead and lower the actual car down to the bumper, get it so that it fits where it needs to be. Then I'm going to go ahead and drill a bunch of holes and cleco it in place, and see if I can get it all to suck up nice and tight to the whole front end of the car. If we can confirm that, then we know our front bumper is pretty much done, and the only matter is getting it painted and final installing it. At that point, we can start working on the front fenders. But I do have some body work I have to do on this top edge. I have to clean this up and get this all nice and square. And also there's a little bit of a profile here on like a 45 bevel that is going to add a little bit more character to this thing, as opposed to the old one, which is completely flat. So there's a couple of steps we still have to take in order to get this thing fitted to the car and make sure everything's good. This is not an off-the-shelf body kit, guys. This is a hand custom-made piece that is only for this car, and this is the only one that exists. So later on down the road, when we go to production with these cars and start building more of them, then we'll probably pull molds off of this one that fits perfect, so that the future body kit parts will fit just like a normal body kit that you would buy for any kind of car.
So for now, we're gonna go ahead and throw the front bumper on, get the DeLorean lowered down, and start getting these pieces to mate together for the very first time and see what they look like. All right, so we got the front bumper on, and it fits like a dream. Look at that. Man, oh man. It looks super aggressive. I love how much sharper this front lip spoiler is, how it leads into these flares. So this is all set for now. This is gonna now tell me exactly where I need to be for my front fenders. And here's another thing I wanted to show you guys. Look at the radius on the fender compared to the tire. This was a big thing I wanted to fix on this new kit, is to have the tire actually fit inside of it. Before, the front fender was pinched like an oval as opposed to a circle, so that was a problem. So now we're going to go ahead and start fitting these to the body of the car. Now we have this body line here and this body line over here that's going to tell me where this thing needs to be in space. So once I dictate all that, I'm going to actually tape this to the car, and then that's when we lay up our inner flange with fiberglass. And then we can repurpose these rib nut holes to be able to bolt the flange on where you don't see the hardware. Unfortunately, I had no option on the front bumper to through bolt it, but future versions, this might get bonded, and the upper fascia, instead of it being urethane, it's going to be replaced with fiberglass. So this whole thing, this entire piece will all be one piece. So this will all be fiberglass, which will be ideal. Or carbon fiber to just make it as light as possible. And then I don't have to put any like supports under here. Even though for the air dam to really talk to the radiator, there needs to be some air ducting that happens there. So if we have time, I'll get to that. But if we don't, which we probably won't, I have like 8 days left. And then we have to put this thing on the truck. We'll get the front end dialed in today. And hopefully side skirts will show up probably in about a day or two, and then we can start dialing the back end of the car. So let's go ahead and get those front fenders on now, start mounting them up and getting them where we want them to go. All right, Bondo Afro is in full effect, as you can see, and I can't stand body work. I hate it, but the front end is coming together. I'm gonna show you guys. I'm super pumped on this. So we got everything nice and trimmed in. Everything is nice and tight all the way to the body of the car. It's pulling off a little bit because of the tape, but you can see the flush fitment. Everything is looking really good. This is reminding me of a legit 80s IMSA race car, which is super cool. The way the flare comes down works into the front lip spoiler. So we got the whole front end pretty much dialed in. The only thing we have left to do at this point is make our inside flanges. So we're going to fiberglass the inside. I'm going to try to get this a little tighter to be able to hold it as tight to the car as possible. So when we go to make our flanges on the inside,
then when we screw it through, it'll pull nice and tight. So the way what we're gonna do for that is we're probably gonna use metal tape. Metal tape is like used in HVAC, and you can use it for pretty much anything. I use it a lot to like hold stuff in place and to get air ducts and stuff like that. But anyway, so the front end is looking pretty good. I'm really happy with how it's coming out, and it's just going to look awesome, all matte black with the hood on and the headlights in, and I just can't wait to get this thing on the ground. All right, guys, we got the front end all dialed in, and we also have our front fender marked out where we're going to be putting our inner flange. The front bumper is nice and body worked in. Everything is nice and flat and smooth, so this will be ready for paint soon. I'm going to leave it just like that as you see it for now, because I want to start fitting the front fenders. Now, this one's already marked, so I know exactly where this fender needs to lie, but I did not mark the other side, so I have to put the car back on the ground, get the blocks underneath it, and then mark this side so I know exactly where it goes. Once we have all that situated, then I'm going to go ahead and pull the front wheels off, and then we'll use our metal tape I talked about before, and we'll actually metal tape the front fender onto the DeLorean fender so we can get in there with some fiberglass and get this all situated. After that's dry, we're going to go ahead and shift our focus to the back end of the car. We'll put our rear wheels on and put our rear fenders on. I've done all of the A surface, most of the A surfaces on the fenders, getting them all nice and smooth, getting everything radius where we want it. I know I'm going to have to trim this and make it match the front, and I also have a lot of work to do on the back side, but I don't want to do that until I have the tires on. I know that the fitment is right, just like the front. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and put the car back on the ground, get our passenger side where we want it, pull the front wheels off, and start getting ugly with some fiberglass. So let's get at it. All right, so we got our front fenders prepped. Like I said, this metal tape, guys, is perfect when you're doing any sort of composite work or glass work. So this is going to create a nice seal against the car that we're then going to interpret on the inside. So we're going to take our chopped fiberglass, we're going to go about 2 inches back and about 2 inches this way, and just wedge it right in the corner, all the way up and around the inside of the fender. Then we're going to let it dry, and then this tape is going to allow us to pop it off the car using the car as a mold. We'll then punch holes in the actual fiberglass to our original riv nuts to be able to create our mounting surfaces to reverse mount the actual fender. Then we're going to go on the outside and just do a seam of Bondo here, and that's going to clean up this edge and completely, perfectly match it to the body of the car. We're going to do that on both sides. Shouldn't be a whole lot of fiberglass work, but this is what we did on the first version. It's a little bit tighter in here because the fender before was like straight, and now it's more of like a 45-degree angle because we actually narrowed the front end of the car up about 40 millimeters. So it's a little bit narrower, but we're going to be able to get it done. We're also going to be able to clean all this up with some more filler work and get the front of the car pretty much dialed in, then we can work our way to the back. All right, we got one side done, and as you can see, guys, we went ahead and fiberglassed all inside there. Now, this is a two-man job, so got my buddy Ethan in today, and what he did is he went and wet down these pieces of fiberglass first, so that he's handing them to me as we're going. You try to do it by yourself, it's kind of difficult, so you want to grab a friend and be able to get your fiberglass work done. So now what we're going to do is we went and did 10 ounces with 3 layers on the inside of that fender. So we're going to duplicate the same thing on this side. It's going to be a little difficult because we're against the wall, so we have to move our station over. But we're going to just basically repeat the whole process. Ethan's going to be wetting down these little pieces of fiberglass. And in case you guys are wondering, this is a chop strand fiberglass. And it's not super thick. I don't know like the exact... Yeah, so it's 1/2 by 50. It's not super thin, but it's not super thick. So this is perfect. This is usually made for like boat working and stuff like that. So this type of fiberglass is going to work out perfect. So we're going to go ahead and head over to the other side, start masking it off and getting that done. Hopefully this dries up quick. I got the, yeah, it's starting to tack up a little bit. So we should have the front end done today and let it sit overnight, pull all this tape off in the morning and be able to Bondo it up, pop these off, drill our holes, and then finally we'll be able to do our final body work. But before we do all that, let's run the time lapse on the other side of the car and get that front fender done. All right, now that we got our front fenders fiberglass on the car, before we pop these things off, I'm going to remove all this metal tape, and I'm going to do a thin finger bead of Bondo on this seam, and that's just going to tighten up the gap perfectly, completely filling all the little imperfections, and it's going to be like a razor blade edge at that point when the fender actually bolts back on the car. If I did that after the fact, then I would not be able to maintain this exact orientation to the car, and it would be kind of like a question as to where it would go. Because after we get this thing all dialed in completely, then we have to drill the holes on the backside to actually suck this thing up and bolt it to the car from the reverse flange that we laid up. All this tape will release from the car. We'll just kind of pop it off. So we go ahead and do that Bondo line on both sides, remove our metal tape. Then we're going to be able to do our final body work, throw it back up, mark our holes on the inside, bolt it on, and then we're just wet sanding and painting this whole front end the nice satin black that it was before, that I'm pretty jazzed about. Once that's all done, we're going to go ahead and throw the wheels back on. We're going to throw our rear wheels back on, get it on the ground, and start working on the rear quarter panels. All right, I think we're ready to pull these fenders. The Bondo is, yeah, it's pretty hard. It's dry to the touch. This is all tape underneath here. So what I'm going to do is, the trick to this is you want to get it kind of popped first. So I'm probably going to start here since this is the path of least resistance. Once I get the tape started and it's going to start releasing, it'll follow all the way around and then we'll just be able to pull it all the way off. Either that or you grab it from underneath and just kind of roll it forward. But then you're fighting the adhesion of the tape all the way around. Yes, I said adhesion. It's a big word. But what we're going to be dealing with right here is, yeah, so some resin fell inside that corner right there, so I'm gonna get that with a razor blade, cut that loose because that's gonna bite us in the butt when we try to pop this thing off. So I want to loosen that up. This side I know is already loose, and if I pull it, yeah, see, it already starts releasing, no problem. So we're gonna go ahead and get the razor blade in here and start prying this thing away from the car. Boom. Reverse flange. So it's pretty big. What we'll do is we're going to body fill all this in here, get all that nice and clean, and then we'll sand it. We're going to cut it so it's a nice like 2-inch flange, so it's nice and even all the way around. Looks like we meant to do that way. And then throw some color on it, and then we're good to go. So our line now, our body line is perfect. So if I take the sanding paper and just go square against this edge right here and get rid of this little lip, I can just finish that off, prime it, and then it should be perfect as far as fitting on the car. All right, guys, so we got one of the flanges all set. As you can see, this one's primed and ready to go. I'm gonna have to fit it on the car and mark my holes on the backside. This is what it looks like before I trim it. So I go ahead and mark it, trim it all the way out. One little Bondo on the inside here, flipped it over, got that side done. So once it's all done, we'll prime it. Now, while I'm doing that, Ethan's over here wet sanding the front bumper. So this is the process that we're gonna do right before it's painted. The primer is really rough right now, and what's going to happen is that's going to translate through into our paint. We're going to do a satin black or a low gloss black. So low gloss is going to allow us to be a little bit more forgiving with it as opposed to high gloss, but we still have to do our due diligence to smooth it out. So Ethan's hitting it with a 600 grit right now, the 600 grit, and then we're going to go to probably a 1200. Key when you're wet sanding, guys, you want to keep it as wet as possible for as long as possible. So you want to keep dipping it into the bucket of water, and also fresh water will help as well. So Ethan's going to be hitting this with the 600, then the 1200. Then we're going to go ahead and fit the front fenders on, make sure they're good to go, get our holes lined up. We'll wet sand that, and then we'll be able to paint all of this the low gloss black before we move to the rear quarter panels. All right, guys, we are all set painting for the front fenders, and this sheen came out perfect. So it's got a really nice, like a very mild shine to it. I didn't really want it to be too shiny. I didn't want it to be too dull. And that's kind of like the cyberpunk theme that we're going with the car. Front bumper came out awesome, and we also shot the factory front molding that's on the original front bumper because that thing was looking pretty janky from falling off the bench a couple times. So what we're going to do now is drop this thing down on the ground, and Ethan's going to help me out. We're going to put the hood back on the car. We're going to put the remaining pieces inside the frunk, and then we're also going to put the front wheels back on, get our blocks of wood down on the ground, and start situating the fasteners for the inner flange that we made for the front fenders. So we can get the front of the car pretty much all buttoned up before we start shifting our focus to the back. All right, guys, we're getting down to the wire. We got our most of the pieces of the puzzle here, but the one thing we've been waiting on is the side skirts. Now, the front bumper, as you guys saw, we got that all dialed in, got the front fenders dialed in. We still have to trim our back quarter panels, our back over fenders, but we couldn't do that unless we had the side skirts, because the side skirts work into the bottom of the over fender and then go over the back of the wheel. So I didn't really know where the rear fender had to be. So Tyler, being Tyler, pulled a huge favor, drove an hour and a half all the way to the main depot to drop off the parts to get our side skirts before the weekend, because we are now on Friday and we have to have the car out by Wednesday. So if I got the side skirts on Monday, then I would only have literally a day to get the side skirts done. So we got our side skirts. We're going to unbox these things, take a look at the condition they're in. We probably have to do some fine tuning on them, just like we did on all the other pieces. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to mount them on the car first so that we know exactly where the rear quarter panels have to go in relation to the side skirt and the tire. So in order to do that, I'm going to unbox the side skirts now. We're going to go ahead and put the rear wheels on the car. I'm going to get this DeLorean out of the way. We're going to lower the whole thing down. We're going to put the front wheels on as well. Get the whole car on the ground level, because the lift arm is going to stop us from being able to put the side skirts on, because they go all the way down to this point here. They go pretty low. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, the lift arm is kind of where it needs to be. So I might be able to get away with putting them on without it. So we'll see what happens. Let's just get these things out of the box. I'm talking too much, and we'll see what they look like. All right, we got the side skirts out of the box, and they look fresh. So these are going to need a once-over with the whole blocking, just like we did on the rest of the kit. Not a huge deal. It's just going to take a little bit of blocking it out. We have a nice inner flange here for our mounting surface. So this flange is probably going to have to get cut down, but it's going to actually roll underneath the bottom of the body line, and I have these tabs here that will screw in from the top. Now, once that is accomplished, then we'll have a sill plate that goes on top of all of it, and then we're going to have to make some little tabs underneath the body, because this side skirt brings it down flush to the bottom of the actual tub of the car. So in a DeLorean, the factory side skirt is just this, and then you see this ugly piece just hanging down, and you see these things and all that jazz. It's not the greatest looking thing, So that's why I wanted a side skirt that just cleared this whole thing and just completely just cleaned it all up. What I was talking about before, this little jet out right here, this guy, this is what matches up to the rear flare. This is why I couldn't really do much fitting on this until I got it in the mail. So this is going to come up here, and this is what's going to meet to there. See that? So that line has to be perfect to our rear wheel. So we almost have to fit the side skirt and the rear quarter panel at the exact same time. I'm not going to mess around with that though until I get these things pretty much dialed in where I want them first, bodywork wise. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to focus on getting the bodywork done on these side skirts, get them all nice and cleaned up and blocked out, get a nice coat of primer on them, get them ready for paint, and then we'll go ahead and start trimming and start getting everything situated for mounting them on the car. So we're going to go ahead and do the bodywork now, get all that done, and then we'll start mounting them to the DeLorean. All right, we finally got the car on the wheels. As you can see from the time lapse, we went ahead and lowered the car down, and it's got quite a, how you call it, those kids who do the squatting with the trucks. Yeah, it's squatting pretty hard. So we got to raise the rear shocks up quite a bit to get this thing level. Once we level it out, then we're going to be able to start fitting our rear quarter panels. But right now, the whole car is like leaned back like that. I can't remember what that's called. Put it in the comments below what it's called when they squat the trucks like that. I can't remember, but I know it's not the most appealing look, at least not in my taste. So we're gonna go ahead and raise the back end up a little bit. We're using we're just using a simple level on the bottom of the fiberglass tub, and right now the bubble is like nailing the front of the level. So we're gonna go ahead and adjust that now. Try to get the car nice and level, and then we can start fitting our side skirts and then our rear quarters. Alright, SEMA crunch is real. It's the next day, and it's like 5:30 in the morning. Trying to be quiet for the neighbors, but gotta keep making noise. We got the car on the ground, and we got the rear quarters on, the side skirts on. This thing is looking spicy. So what we're gonna do is we got this side fit. As you can see, we got our gaps all nice and tight. The tape's not really holding up, but what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get this situated. We're going to mark it on the car. I have a little stainless I got to cut out from back here. So the old quarter panels were a lot tighter. This is more like an elongated, like top speed style fender flare to kind of give the back of the car like that long feel where the original flare was and the original fender was, to try to kind of talk to the original body lines of the car. The DeLorean from the factory has a 14-inch front, 15-inch rear stagger for the wheel setup. Anyway, a 14-inch front and a 15-inch rear stagger, which actually translates, if you put like big boy wheels on it, you could put a 17 up front pretty comfortably and like a 19 in the rear. That's how big the rear wheel arch is. So in order to maintain that, we went with a bigger arch in the back than the front to accommodate the 18 that we're running in the back here and a 17 up in front. So we have to get this side skirt on the passenger side, and we have our passenger side rear quarter over there. So we went ahead and just did a little bit of trim around here to get this nice and tight. We're gonna go ahead and do that on this side now. I also raised the car significantly from where it was. Before, this rear tire would be touching the inside of this, and it was just not, like I said before, it wasn't drivable, it was not usable. So we have a base ride height right now that's about,
I would say 2 inches higher than it was before when it's completely aired out. So it's not going to look like crazy, like stanced out JDM car anymore. It's going to look more like Euro spec supercar. So it's still going to be significantly low. The front overhang is still going to be about 2 inches off the ground, which is going to be really low. Whereas before it was like you can barely get your hand in there. So we're going to go ahead and put the passenger side on, get that trimmed. Look at that angle. Look at that. Nice. We're going to get the passenger side on, get it all trimmed, get it all fit up, and then we're going to get it up in the air, do our metal tape again, and then start getting ready to make our reverse flanges for the back end of the car. Once the flanges are made, we'll finalize our bodywork on the rear quarter panels. We're going to go ahead and shoot these black. I have hardware already done for the side skirts. So these tabs right here, we'll drill a bunch of holes in there. We'll also come on the back side and do a couple screws to grab these two together. And then I'm probably going to have to do a brace at the front to get rid of this, this floppiness. So we'll put one in the front, one in the center, probably a 1-inch strip of 1/8 inch aluminum, and we'll screw it in from the bottom, and it'll tie it to the body of the car. Still debating whether or not I have to trim the front off the side skirt. It might be a little long to stop the tire from turning, but we won't know until we start airing the car up and down and actually steering the front wheels. So a lot of work to do. We have literally 2 days left until we have to be on the road to Orlando to drop this thing off to Forrest, our shipper, and then it's off to SEMA. But yeah, let's get to work on the passenger side and see what we can do. All right, guys, it's another day. It's about 5 o'clock in the morning right now, and today's D-Day. So I have to have this car done today. Yesterday, we did a lot of time lapse with the body kit, showing you guys how we did the reverse flanges on the rear quarters. So we got another coat of primer on there. They're looking pretty good. They need to be wet sanded. We're going to do 600, 800, 1200. Then we're going to finally be able to put a coat of paint on there, and then do our final install. Thankfully, on the rear, as opposed to the front, we're going to be able to through bolt all across this stainless flange. Oh, and I cut the back of this guy off too to get rid of all of the some of the stainless that was poking through, because these rear flares are a lot longer than the other ones. So today we're going to finalize the install on the side skirts. I have to make a support brace on the front. I'm going to go ahead and put these extensions probably on my lift pads so that I can raise the car up so I can put the side skirts on with the car on the lift. So I want to get it up to eye level to be able to set the side skirt where I want it, and then I'll be able to get underneath and then probably come from like the bottom of the car here out and grab that side skirt at the front to be able to give it some support so it's not flopping in the wind. So we're going to get that done. We're going to get the side skirts done. We went through the oiling system last night. We redid the drain lines. I have to make some brackets to hold this line back up. Before it was just held in with zip ties, but we're going to do something a little fancier. And also we have to install the exhaust, obviously. That's going to be a quick and easy thing. I just took it off to be able to detail the engine. I still have these taggers on here from when we scanned the underside of the car. We were going to do a diffuser, but we just ran out of time, so unfortunately we're not going to do a diffuser. We also did plugs. We did an oil change on it. It had like a weird misfire, but I'm pretty sure it's because the plugs are just fouled out. This car hasn't really hit the dyno yet. It hasn't been tuned completely. It just has a factory LS1 tune, which is fine because I don't plan on hitting the track anytime soon and running a bunch of boost on this car just yet, so I think that'll be fine. What else do we have to do? We have to do the oil feed lines. We're going to be putting in these Turbo Smart oil restrictors. So before we were dumping in like full oil pressure, and we got these oil restrictors from Turbo Smart. These things are probably going to solve our issue as far as the amount of oil going into the turbo. I talked to my guy at Garrett, and he said that you just need like a drip, just drip, 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 like a constant drip of oil into the ball bearing turbos. You do not need like full whatever your oil pressure is in the engine blasting through that turbo. Especially with the turbos being low mount like this, it's going to put less strain on the pump and less strain on the system. Running just a lower psi of oil pressure, significantly lower actually, which will get rid of our issue of oil accumulating in the cartridge and then coming out of the actual turbo. So we have all that to take care of today. We also have to finalize the ride height. Once the body kit is like completely installed, I have the front pretty much dialed in where I want it. I would like to get the front end a little bit lower if I could. As you can see, the droop is pretty significant. But the only way to do that is to increase the camber in the front end. So right now the camber is kind of square, so the top of the tire is just resting on the inside of the fender flare, which looks really cool. It's really aggressive. But if we can get a little more camber out of the front, we can get it just a hair lower. But we won't really know until we get the car on the ground, like completely on the ground, and see what it looks like. And then we'll really make a decision. But for right now, the big things that we need to do is finalize the body kit, obviously. Get the exhaust back on, get the oil lines back on, get everything dialed in. And then get the air ride finalized. We just have to put these lines back on instead of take them off in order to raise the back end up. I raised the back end up significantly, as you can see. We now have 4.5 inches on the rear shock, and then the fronts are completely bottomed out. The suspension on DeLorean is very, very strange, very different from what you would normally get. Other than that, we're pretty much there. Headlights should be here today. My buddy Steve Mullen, Skeptic Innovations, I put a link in the description below on this video. He did the original headlights and taillights on this car, and the version 2 headlights are going to be amazing. I already seen pictures of them. I won't spoil it. We'll do an unboxing a little bit later today. And then tomorrow, we got to get this thing on a flatbed and heading up to Mount Dora, which is just north of Orlando. And we'll be meeting up with a friend of a friend for getting this thing shipped out to California. Well, to Vegas, not to California. So we got a lot of work to do. Like I said, it's still early. I can hear the roosters crowing outside, and we need to get to work. So we're going to get these rear quarter panels done and in paint first. Then we'll go ahead and lower the car down and start messing around with the exhaust and the oiling system while this dries. And then we just have to punch some holes in these flanges that we made yesterday. And then we're going to be able to bolt it on and then call it done. The last step we're going to do on the body kit is we're going to be using some 5200, some 3M gasket. It's not a gasket maker, but it's this stuff. So this sealant. So this is going to be like a flexible seal for all of the leading edge seams on the body kit. It's going to add a little bit more strength to it, but it's also going to add a element of just allowing the flares to kind of blend to the car a little bit better. There's some areas where there's a little bit of a gap, a little bit of a discrepancy from the time that we had. If you see all the RWB cars that have like a black seam going around all the fender flares, they use that adhesive sealant for all that stuff. So it's almost like, it's almost like caulking on a baseboard for, if you ever do anything in the house. It's just going to clean all the leading edges up, and it's just going to kind of put a bow on the whole body kit. So we'll be doing that today as well, and putting the carpet back in the frunk, and then hopefully getting this thing air up for the first time. So we're going to start sanding, get these rear flares done. Side skirts are already done, and it's going to be a long day, so let's get to it. All right, guys, I'm in an insane crunch right now, and I could not vlog this out, but I love you so much that I'm going to. So as you can see in the time lapse, I went ahead and put the rear wheels back on, put it on the jacks, got it to air up, because I needed to make sure I was at my 1.25" gap distance that I was originally at when I fiberglassed the inside flange and did my Bondo seam on the outside, mirroring it perfectly to our stainless steel panel. Now, in order to get back on the car where it was before, I had to put the wheel back on, get it back down to completely aired out, confirm right 1.25". My timing marks were correct, so that's good. So what we're going to be, now what I did was I made these tape lines all the way around, and that's going to be my guide to get it to where I had it before with the wheel on. So I'm going to match it up to those points and then be able to use my clecos, which my little clampy clecos that actually will clamp it in place, hold it in place, and then I'll be able to mark my holes. This is going to be through bolted, so it's going to be so much easier than the front. The front, I had to source all these original holes, but with the flare being 2 or 3 inches narrower, the angle is way more aggressive. So it'd have just barely enough room to put a little nut in there. We'll come in from the backside with a screw. We're going to do that on both sides now. So what we're going to do is mock the fender back up, mark our holes, and then start through bolting. And we're also going to throw 2 screws here to put some strength in the back of the quarter pan of the side skirt. We're going to repurpose all of this hardware that's inside of this sill piece right here. So all of these guys, and then our original DeLorean sill goes over it and covers all that hardware. And then, like I said before, we'll make one more little bracket here. And then the only question is this guy right here. Is it going to hit the tire when I go to steer? If so, I'm going to cut it back to this original stainless steel line. This is all original from when the car had the first body kit. I'm not too thrilled with how this gap is right here, but I might be able to put a piece of aluminum back there, like a brushed piece of aluminum, to be able to close that hole up. Worst case scenario, it's going to go to the show like that. There's been worse things that happened at SEMA, I assure you. So that will not be the worst thing at the show this year. So what we're going to do is go ahead and throw the quarter down, get it bolted up, get everything fitted, put the wheel back in, and then we'll be able to finalize this side skirt and finalize this body kit. Finally. Body kit is done. Rear quarter panels are on. Got everything reverse bolted. We got both sides on the car. Side skirts are on. Front fenders, rear fenders. So now we're doing all of our touch up. As far as like little odds and ends, we're getting done. Have to hook the airlines back up to the bags. I'm putting the wastegates back on. I have to reconnect my boost lines for the turbo system. And we're going to put the exhaust back on because my buddy Brad is heading over right now to mess with the tune. Last time I drove this thing, let me do this. Last time I drove this thing, it was running really, really rich, and it was smoking like a chimney as far as like unburnt fuel. So we changed the plugs, did an oil change on it, and did the oil restrictors, as I said before, to try to slow down the amount of oil pressure going in the turbos. Which should work. The only thing left to do is once he gets here, he's going to put a bass tune back in the car, be able to figure out, I wasn't even pointing at myself, was I? Be able to figure out exactly where the tune is. We'll lean the car out a bunch. We're not setting up for like crazy boost right now, just to get it so it can like drive in and out of the show. And we have a photo shoot that we have lined up before the show as well. So it'd be cool to get some driving shots of the car. So we're going to go ahead and get that dialed in tonight. And then tomorrow we get to put this thing on the truck and send it to Vegas. So I have a couple more hours to go on the back end, getting everything buttoned up. And then we're going to start messing around with the tune and fire this thing up for the first time properly so you guys can get some sound bites and see what it sounds like. So let's get back to work.
And everything should be good to start?
Should be. Is it neutral? It's not neutral. There you go. Yeah, don't worry about that.
Do I need to push the clutch or anything?
No.
Hold it or just push it?
Just
once?
push it. It's not backfiring. It's not running super rich either. You fixed it, Brad. Yay! Thank you. It definitely smells rich. What is it?
Why is your alternator not charging?
That's a great question.
How do you turn it off? Just turn the key?
Key off, yeah. Yeah, why isn't the alternator charging?
It's like 12 and a half, 12.7. It's
It should be at 14, right?
Sometimes.
It's not bad?
14 and a half. No, it's fine.
Okay. I mean, it smells rich back there.
Because it ain't got no cats.
Oh, yeah. It's got a little chop to it. It's actually running really well. I mean, it sounds good. 900 RPM?
No.
Oh, it's at 7?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What's our temperature at?
112.
Oh, that's not bad. Yeah, we got a little bit of smoke already, but that might be leftover oil in the exhaust. Should be the arrows. Definitely know of that.
Oil pressure
Oh.
0.
Oil pressure is 0.
That's what it says on there. But there's an error for the oil pressure. Yeah, oil pressure sender operating error.
Oh, it's not working?
Yeah.
Go ahead and kill it real quick. Let me check the oil. Guys, we've been in complete thrash mode last night. Brad got the car running, as you could hear from the clip that I posted, and the car is pretty much done. That's all I'm going to show you right now, just a quick teaser. We got the tow truck coming. I got to pull this thing out right now, so he's not waiting for me. We're going to head to Orlando, and my buddy Forrest is going to be towing this thing out to Vegas for me. So we got to go up and meet him at BC Forged or BC Racing, whichever one he's going to be at. And we're going to load this thing into the box truck, and I think tonight around midnight he's going to hit the road and head to Vegas. So we got to get this thing loaded up now and get out of here. All right, guys, it's really loud. We're here in Orlando. Actually, we're in Daytona, and we got the DeLorean all loaded up. My guy Forrest is going to be loading this thing into Vegas, and that Miata up there is actually with the Fox Foundation, which is Michael J. Fox's Parkinson's Research Foundation, where he's raising money in order to battle Parkinson's disease. It's pretty amazing. The fact that this car is in the same trailer with something attached to Michael J. Fox is just giving me chills right now. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for subscribing. We're going to be hitting Las Vegas. We're going to hit SEMA super hard next week. So make sure you hit that notification bell and get caught up. We'll see you next episode.